With so much focus on keeping ourselves and our loved ones safe and healthy, it's easy to forget that most of us are going to experience things like allergies, colds, possibly even the flu. So, reminding you, proper hydration is crucial for all of these things. Remember, even slight dehydration can make you feel like you're getting sick, and none of us need that anxiety right now, that's for sure. That's where Hydrolyte comes in. Longtime fans will remember my obsession with Hydrolyte, which is simply the best oral rehydration product I've tried. I'm even more excited to introduce their brand new single-serve powder sticks. Simply pour one powder stick into a glass of water. They recommend 7 ounces. The powder dissolves almost instantly, creating the perfect balance of sodium, glucose, and water. Delivers up to 4 times the electrolytes of your typical sports drink. The other great news about Hydrolyte's new powder sticks, they're 100% all natural. No artificial flavors, colors, or sweeteners. They're available in flavors like orange and lemonade, and they taste great. Hydration is crucial, and Hydrolyte is fastest and easiest way to stay ahead of it. Get your supply of Hydrolyte powder sticks now at hydrolyte.com/DRDREW. Again, that's HYDRALYTE.com/DRDREW, and then use that code DrDrew25 at checkout.
Hey everyone, it's a dose of Dr. Drew.
Here we are, buddy. Thank you for joining us on a Sunday. I didn't mean to tear you away from all the football games, which, by the way, were a great relief just to have them playing in the background, I must tell you. I'm watching you on the chat, and we'll continue to do so. But we very much wanted to get together today for many reasons. I mean, it's just a lot going on, of course, as always. But there was a lot of controversy around a particular Netflix film. We wanted to address that. I saw some other things with a new law in California that made me scratch my head. I literally couldn't believe what I was reading, and apparently what I was reading was somewhat wrong, but not completely wrong. So I thought it is time we get together with my friend and colleague, Dr. Lisa Strohman. She is an attorney and a licensed clinical psychologist and the brains behind Digital Citizen Academy. I was just messing around here, Lisa, and if you just type into your Google window Digital Citizen, it just comes right up. So awesome. Whether it's DCA Kids or whatever, that's all comes popping up. Tell us first about the website project.
So we're rebranding. We're really focusing on how do we get our system and our program to the families and the kids, whether it obviously now maybe at home versus in the school systems themselves, but with all of these kids over the world going online through this pandemic, like we thought we should do something a little bit more robust and try to get services and education about online safety and what kids need to be aware of when they're going online.
And, you know, you're seeing a lot of teens. You have been sort of specialized there for quite some time. What are you seeing in the middle of all this? And you're in Arizona, so people are moving around a little bit more there than other states.
Right. You know, I spent the summer probably the busiest I've been in the last 20 years dealing with situations, whether it's with clients. Obviously, I've been in session like working with kids here locally and then nationally working on projects like helping schools and just systems like figure out how to kind of get around what are the implications if you go into an online system. How do you kind of backtrack once you have kids online for so long? I think the last statistic I saw, on average, kids that were 10 to 18 were spending up to 14 hours a day online. So we're talking their entire circadian rhythm is shifted. They're staying up till 3 and 4 in the morning. So trying to kind of walk back from that and start back into an academic setting is really what I've been working on over the summer.
Did you see that new Netflix series, The Social Dilemma?
I did. Yes.
Did you feel that went far enough, or was that just too surfacey?
You know, it's very surfacey. I think it's really hard. You look at some of the people that are talking in that film, and I think it's a good start. I think that they're talking about issues. It's kind of the Pandora's box. So I think a lot of people that were working in the tech industry, once it got outside of the scope of what they thought would happen, realized that there was really no way to dial it back. And so I think it's a good start for those people to talk about.
Right. And yet there's so many, that's just the issue of essentially the way they manipulate to monetize. That was very focused on. But what are the things that concern you?
You know, I think that when you look at when industries like technology jump ahead of us in this situation, I think what you have to look at is—
You mean ahead of our evolutionary progress?
Ahead of of our psychology, right?
Yeah.
Like, so I really specialize in kind of how technology and psychology interface with one another. And I think what happened was that these tech people were really excited at how they could utilize how our brain systems get really excitatory. I know you and I have talked kind of nerded out a lot about the brain science, about how you get people to kind of continue to push the pellet, so to speak, online and stay connected to their phones. And so those industries hired people in psychology, and they're like, hey, we can really make this something that people can't put down.
Right.
And what I think that what they see now is that it's gone so far that we're losing a massive piece of this production and productive input in society, because people are just really jumping in and not knowing how to have boundaries anymore.
Right. So I had a personal experience today. This COVID thing has been a very depressing experience for me, and they stole a lot of my life. I was just thinking, I don't know what I would have done without this local Fox 11 TV show I do every day. It was just sort of an opportunity to try to keep doing something worthwhile. And this thread we do every day, this stream. But I was feeling super depressed today, and so I got on Twitter and started mouthing off, and then I couldn't get out. It was the most bizarre. I think I was dissociating during part of it. Today.
What do I have to look forward to?
Today.
I was just going to say, do we have to do an intervention? We've had this conversation, Drew.
And I was fully aware of it the whole time. And I wasn't indulging it so much as just observing, watching what happened. And I would go from Twitter to TikTok, lose all sense of time and space, and then, I got to check out what was going on Twitter, because I got down some rabbit holes with some things I was thinking and saying. And I thought to myself more than 100 times, I thought, oh my God, if I were 14 years old, this would destroy my life. I would be suicidal.
I think that that's the issue. I think that when you look at, in our state in Arizona, suicide is the number 1 cause of death for teenagers 10 to 14. Nationally, it's the 2nd leading cause of death. I think that that's the part that when you talk about it's kind of surface level, it is the anxiety, it's the depression, it's the hopelessness.
Well, but you would think when you're in it, again, I was watching very carefully what was happening to me. When you're in it, it feels, because you're at least my version of it is I'm sort of dissociating a little bit. It feels, I wouldn't say rewarding, but it feels gratifying in some way. Reward's probably too strong a word, though I'm sure for some people it is. And
it's validating that you have an audience, right? That the people are. I was experiencing simultaneously gratification and profound frustration at the same time. Like the two things were going at the same rate, and that tension somehow became increasingly depressing. Well, it's interesting because I think the algorithms that the industry sets up really kind of insulate a lot of people from that. It's interesting
from that feeling.
From that feeling, because unless you're an influencer, like someone at your level, you do get to see both sides of it, because they basically have more of an open forum for you. But when you're talking about a 10 or 13, 14-year-old kid, basically every single time you post something, it kind of pushes you further into a population and an audience where those people believe and feel the same that you do.
Right.
So it protects you in some sense from getting a lot of that.
Actually, I was laughing at that part. I was looking at Instagram, I think, as part of my journey.
You're on all of them. As
part of my journey, And I was watching what they were starting to send me, and I thought, they can't figure me out, which is accurate. I see both sides of everything. I'm an independent. I'm not a Republican. I'm not a Democrat. My opinions go all over the place, and it was reflected in what they were sending me. It was all over the place. So it is an algorithm after all. It's not a person sending you this information.
Right. And I think that it goes back to understanding that the industry is so new, and as it's evolving, as it's working and it's trying, it basically is testing us. And, we've read articles and we've had admissions from the tech industry giants where they've said that they actually have, worked to intentionally manipulate a population of their listeners to see if they can make them more depressed, just to see if they could do it. So of course,
Success.
I think that was
success.
Yeah, 10 years ago, I think I was irate over that.
Let's tell them they've succeeded again today.
Right. Well, see, and I've told you not to go in and read all those things.
It's more than that. It wasn't that the feedback was so, it's always that, of course, the negative feedback is always triggering stuff in your
Hard.
head. But it wasn't, it felt like, I was just trying to watch. It was the futility is not even a strong enough word, the worthlessness. It made me feel worthless because it was a worthless experience, right? The experience is so empty and so worthless. It was just like, so I watched TikTok videos of Disneyland, behind the scenes, and like, what am I doing? Life is like, it feels like life is vanishing in front of your eyes, and the phone is taking, much like the COVID has taken my life away. The phone is taking what's left.
See, Susan thought you were organizing the garage, I'm pretty sure.
I was hoping.
Yeah.
I did that.
And here you are going down a rabbit hole.
So you're, let's say I'm a 17-year-old. What do I do?
Well, again, I think that it goes back to like, where do you spend your time and how do you find spaces to go in and have what I kind of talk about is this, look at is kind of a social, culturally shared experience online. So that's what the platforms are doing for these kids. It allows them to have that social connection that they need. But the inauthentic nature of it and the fact that it is so devoid of true connection that we need is it leaves you empty. And
it's literally, I was thinking I should be reading a book. I mean, that's also a passive, but I get something out of that. There's not a zero-sum game like this. This is stealing my soul.
Right. And that goes back to, I think, that the part of the DCA Academy is like, we really are looking at how do we teach kids? It's okay to use sometimes, right? It's, I don't mind if you have a donut every once in a while, but if you have a dozen donuts every single day of your life, you're going to get sick and you're not going to be well. So I think that, like, to me, those platforms have to be utilized in ways that are understanding of the social power that they can bring and to organize kids. I mean, I think that they can use them for a lot of good if we just simply give them the education and the piece to understand we can come together and we can listen to one another. I think that we're not, the feelings of worthlessness, like you're not feeling like you're valued or that the audience is hearing you well, because we're not training kids to listen. It doesn't matter, if you disagree with me or not, but the fact that you just shut it down and you're not going to listen, you're going to attack me, is very, very upsetting. And that's where I feel like we get that hopelessness and worthlessness that comes out of it.
And as you and I have talked about in the past, listening is something we are supposed to do with our whole body. We're supposed to be in the presence of another person and fully, attuned to them as a way of connecting. And this takes away all that too.
Absolutely. I mean, I've been doing Zoom mostly over the summer with most of my clients, but for sure, my at-risk teenagers that are suicidal or self-harming or any of those things, I'm going into the office wearing a mask. I need to feel their energy. Like you cannot clinically replicate that, over an online system.
That's right. And so I've seen all this data lately that's getting super pronounced about suicide, particularly in mid-teenage females. What's going on there?
I think it's interesting. I worked with the CDC. I've pulled up their data a lot. We have a 240% increase over the last 2 decades in suicides 10 to 14. You look at when technology, the smartphone specifically came out, the iPhone in 2006, it definitely is a correlational trend. Obviously, as a scientist, I don't want to say that it's causation, right?
But still, let's just think about the fact that let's just talk about the magnitude of the trend. I remember when I was working a psych hospital, people would go, "Oh, a 10-year-old committed suicide. Oh my goodness." Now that's not that uncommon.
It's not that uncommon. They can access the data. A week and a half ago, we had a veteran stream his suicide live on Facebook. It was instantaneously pulled and recorded, right? So Facebook streamed it. They pulled it as soon as it was noted. It was too late at that point, and then it started trending over TikTok.
Right.
So then I start getting, all of these calls where kids are now, again, we've talked about this before. There's the primary trauma, the secondary trauma, the tertiary trauma. secondary trauma is watching it happen, and tertiary trauma is continuing to like spread that information, which intentionally was put out over TikTok and by a, somebody who was trying to, to spread that energy and where they're feeling. And so kids are seeing it and we're not talking about it. Because that's what we've done in the past. We've decided that it's too scary to talk about suicide. It's too scary to talk about feeling like we want to commit suicide. And so we continue to see the numbers escalate.
I'm watching on my thread here. I guess there was a hanging too that somebody, did you hear about this one?
Well, unfortunately, it happens a lot. I didn't see the one that was recently. One of the very first live streamings that occurred was a 12-year-old young lady.
Oh my God.
That happened, and so that was really when things started to kind of ramp up. But you certainly can't control it over all of the platforms. TikTok specifically, because their servers are out of the country. We, as a kind of law enforcement response, we can't respond and pull anything down. So now we're kind of at the leisure of when that happens from somebody that we have to ask to do,
Right. And it's all, in the world, the sort of unsafe feeling in the world right now and all the acting out that's going on in our streets. What do you make of that? Is that part of the same phenomenon?
I think, again, like I look at, people came to me and they're like, can't we just have one crisis at a time? And I was like, no, we have to have a pandemic. We have to have a social justice movement and an election all at the same time. So there's a lot of energy and movement. I've talked a lot about kind of the pandemic itself specifically and how people in trauma situations. So if you think about the fear of a virus and safety and health issues, people that are dying, all of that grief has to go somewhere. And so typically in trauma, we center with one another. We come together and we support one another. It's what happened after 9/11.
Right.
And we couldn't do it here. So we're insulated, we're isolated, and we're in this position where in these fearful places, we're really kind of feeling it's not cognitively correct, but we're feeling rejected and unsupported. And that's the part I think the psychology is just perfect for the situation, for the rioting and the anger and that displacement of pain and fear is coming out in the streets.
Have you treated any kids that are doing any of this stuff?
No, so interestingly, I did have one child that came in that had participated in some spray paint situations, but not in the rioting itself. We had an entire mall in Scottsdale emptied, that was, millions upon millions of dollars that just completely got trashed. Actually, your friend Jake Paul in your area of the woods was arrested during that looting. So it was very public.
Because it seems, at least as this has tailed on, it seems like there's a certain, when you see what at least is on the internet about the character construct, so to speak, of the folks that are getting caught, it looks like a particular thing, right? I mean, it looks like, people with antisocial personality and oppositional defiance disorder and all the things you'd expect to see that are engaged in antisocial actions.
Yeah, I think it's more than that. I think that, particularly in the situation where it's wrapped around just cause in many situations, right? Like you can't take a situation where you have a George Floyd situation that's so publicly promoted and shown and not have people upset. We should all be upset by that. Yeah. We should all be saddened and we're outraged at it. Yeah. So how do you take that energy and utilize it in a positive social movement without having chaos and destruction? And therein lies the part where we have never talked about it before. There's a lack of trust. And I think that the online forums and information and the seeding of contempt and anger, I think particularly with the younger generation, it isn't really necessarily kids that are oppositional defiant or have any diagnosis. I think that they need purpose. I think that they need to feel again. And I feel like that the part where you said that your life has been taken away with the pandemic, the kids are no different. And this gives them a reason to kind of
that makes perfect sense to me for the people that are demonstrating and the people that are taking on the social justice cause. It does not make sense to me for the people that are being violent and that are camped out and being violent every night.
Right. Well, again, like, how do you not get pulled into, I think we've gone online so many times together, but we've talked about kind of cult group think,
Yep.
like, how do you get yourself out of that and how do you get yourself involved in it, in this piece where you have technology continually feeding you on the strain of thought or the movement where
Right.
you're
So I
believing.
absolutely agree with you. It is an indoctrination that happens, and it's a lot of small decisions that end up in a bad place.
Right. And again, I think that if you look at the people that are showing up in the middle of the night and they're there, it's like part of it is, community members like really trying to have like positive pro-social movement and protest. And then there's a lot of information, a lot of information is coming out that people are coming in from out of the city and out of
Right.
the area, coming
Right.
in and just creating that violence.
That's what
To me, that's
and those seem
that's
to
a
be the ones,
movement.
and those seem to be the ones getting arrested. That's what I keep seeing on the threads, that they're from God knows where. They usually live on the streets or have had really serious displacements, and they find their way to this to, act it out. There's a guy named Rob Henderson I've had on the show. He's a social psychologist, and he was one of those kids, and then he went into the army and he straightened out, and now he's a social psychology PhD candidate at Cambridge. And he's written a lot in the last couple of days. I put some of it up on Twitter about what that feels like, because he would have been one of those kids.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's, you and I have talked about my background before. I think that I could have gone either way, probably, right? Like, having been homeless as a child and like having struggled with no food and things like that. I think that it takes something in your life and somebody to believe in you.
Interestingly, you didn't tell me that part of your trauma.
Oh,
you,
I can only give you a
exposed
dose
me to
at
a
a
few
time.
other elements, but not that one. But thank you for saving me from that part. It might have overwhelmed me a bit.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
but that makes, your accomplishments that much more phenomenal. And I wish you would. Have you written about that and talked about those, those moments of change and how you get from A to B to C to out?
Not yet. I just finished a book on Generation Z. And so I do have one outline that's going to, probably bring in some of that information. People are encouraging me to talk about it. For me, it sounds like, I'd love, I'm happy to tell my story. You and I have had this conversation before. I'm at a place in my life now that I understand that it can be helpful to others. I do feel the pain of those kids that are struggling. I mean, it's the entire reason I've dedicated my life to, I went to the JD PhD to become a guardian ad litem, for goodness sakes. Like, who takes that on?
We'll explain what that is.
So I'm
explain
here
what
for
that
the
is.
kids.
Explain what that is.
A guardian ad litem is a representative, an attorney representative that goes into a court system and represents kids that don't have representation or doesn't have parents. So it's an independent representation of a child in a court system outside of their parents, who are typically abusers or drug users or things like that. And then outside of the foster system. So that's what a guardian ad litem is.
So it's going back to literally protect your Lisa, protect the Lisas of the world, right?
Right.
Champion.
Right. And I think that just, again, like somebody, there's a whole part, but I think that if somebody kind of recognized where it is that our kids are going offline, how it is that they are vulnerable, how we have to understand the development of who they are as humans. If we don't intervene earlier, right, we're going to continue to get this kind of unfettered response as they become teenagers who and young adults that really feel like they don't have a place in this world.
And to just, if you don't mind, to go back to you said you could have been one of these kids. Can you outline what turned you around? So in case somebody is thinking, struggling that way, or knows someone who is, you can sort of use yourself as a little model.
Sure, of course. I think for me, it was as a young child, my parents got divorced when I was 5. And as a young child, I struggled a lot between two homes. One, my mom, who was inadvertently homeless at times on food stamps. We struggled to eat oftentimes. And then, my dad's home, who was a state worker and had kind of a stable, kind of very middle of the road, middle income job. But I had a teacher and I had a safe place to go every day. And so it's no coincidence that I spend a lot of time and I work really hard to support those teachers in this world that really are underrepresented or underpaid, but give of themselves. I still have a jelly bean necklace from my 2nd grade teacher who, for some reason knew I was at this point in my life where I had thought about taking my own life. I had started to act out. I was running away, and she gave me this jelly bean necklace, which I think I treated as a rosary. I have it actually put it in my safe. That's how much I love this necklace.
Wow.
But Mrs. Allison was this person who recognized in me, and she said, "You matter." And each one of these rainbow jelly beans should represent the pieces of you that you need to give back to the world and tell your story. And that was what changed me.
It is so interesting to me, and I don't know how we need to drill into those moments more deeply as a profession in mental health. Our friend Anthony Brown, who I think I'm seeing here on the thread, is that Susan? Am I getting his name right? From Park Bench to Park Avenue. He wrote that book, and he was a homeless guy, cocaine addict, cocaine dealer, blah 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 blah. And one day, during one of his routine arrests and release, that a social worker or something came up to him and said, we can help you, and then offered him a cigarette. And he said just that gesture of giving the cigarette, and I think what's in those moments is seeing something. There's Anthony, seeing something real in you, and then sort of communing with it or paying homage to it, and somehow, because it always involves some sort of contact like that. It's not just, hey, I see you, I can help. There's some sort of gesture involved oftentimes. What do you think?
I think I agreed. I think it's an authenticity of where you listen, you hear, and again, I don't know how to bottle that, but it's, do you stay and connect? And yeah,
you and I both know there's plenty of people that would not accept that. You know what I mean? And is it that because we're off the target, that we don't get the target square enough? Or some people need the target to be more on point, or some people are just not open to it. I don't know.
Well, I think that, the definition of how do we kind of dial into that resiliency factor, what makes Anthony, what makes myself, what creates that piece of that person that wants to kind of fight and get to that place. It wasn't just my second grade teacher. It was, I had a grandmother that, paid attention. And then I had, you and I've had this conversation, but I met my husband at 13 in high school, and, dated him, and his family was very stable. And I kind of had this surrogate family with my friend since third grade. So I think that there's a piece of that where you have little pieces of where you kind of have to have appreciation, gratitude. And I think you have to be able to pull yourself out of it and not feel sorry for yourself, and understand that that's the fuel and the power. And that's, to me, how do I empower these kids to recognize that they matter? And that's the piece that I think that I'm fighting so hard against with technology, because I think that, it boils down to a like or, a swipe, and they're gone,
Yeah.
And so that's what we fight against, is how do we make them feel that they matter? And that cigarette for Anthony, or that jelly bean necklace for me, it doesn't have to be a gift, but it has to be someone telling you and kind of leaning into you for that.
Yeah. And I think at the core is something about trust, right? And feeling that there's a potential for adults to care. If you don't trust, you don't feel there's any potential, where are you going?
Yeah. It's interesting. I think that a lot of times I've been told that I'm a bit intense. So I think...
Meaning what?
Yeah. Well, I think that, that somebody told me, they were like, you need to get out of LA. He's like, you're very, you're what'd they say?
Tightly wound.
You're too engaged. You're too real, so I don't know.
What does that mean? What does that mean? Who told you that?
Actually, somebody, who actually is a producer and has a son in movies. Yeah.
Don't listen to producers. You know better.
Yeah.
Than
No, I mean, I love LA, and I love the energy there. I think that but it goes back to you have to be willing to give of yourself. And you and I've had this conversation. There's a lot of taking when you're in a public figure position. And I think that there's a lot of need, and it's because there's a lot of need. And if you're a caretaker by nature, and you're somebody who wants to really help and give of yourself, it takes a lot. There's a lot of energy with that.
Yeah. And it can be frustrating and depleting and all that kind of stuff, especially when you have only, as far as you can tell, only good motives. You know what I mean? You're just trying to do something good, and then it's all suspected and abused or mistreated and that kind of stuff. And of course, the internet is the social media is the place where people just do that. They seem to have no. I had my experience just yesterday, where I practically told a guy I want to meet him out behind the outhouse. Let's go. Let's go out there. Not that much, but it was just like, I've had it. Let's go
on the internet.
Let's get it on. And that's weird. That's just a ridiculous, weird thing.
Well, and it's not typically you.
No.
So like, it tells me how much outside of yourself that you got in the situation where you're going down this wormhole.
Right. Yeah, I don't feel good about it. So, well, let's talk about this. So what got me going on the internet? So
can we talk about Halloween first?
Okay, let's talk about Halloween. So in Los Angeles, you're in the great
canceled.
You're in the great state of Arizona.
Yes.
Susan and I have moved around the country a little bit, and I cannot tell you how different it feels here. It feels like a concentration camp here. They're constantly threatening you with lockdowns. They're trying to tell you it's just continuous every night. Both in this city, our mayor and our government gets on the TV for an hour each every night and tells us how horribly we're doing and how they're going to shut us down. And listen to me.
Kids.
And you have a new app. Like, you have some app that's going to trace you, I heard.
Oh, we have an app now, but I'm all for that. I've got that on because
So we have somebody emailed us this question.
So hold on.
Okay, go ahead.
So one of their brilliant ideas, we have people in the public health department here that seem to be capricious, arbitrary. They don't show their science. There doesn't seem to be any science in what they're recommending. For instance, hair salons and nail salons were closed here for no reason, with no science, and then reopened at 25% capacity. And when I asked someone on the board of supervisors why 25%, she said that's all we could agree to. No science, just capricious. We're going to punish these people who are trying to make a living for no reason. We're just going to do it. And that's the kind of thing that's done here. And the same group that it was, outlawing going to the beach decided they were going to cancel Halloween. This was a week ago. My news program was the first to report it, actually. We found it online, and I went nuts. I said, we're going to talk about this. This is insanity. So here's the question. Given Halloween is being restricted in LA County, which it actually isn't, could we propose doing what this creative couple did? They made a candy shoot. Please visit Halloween Isn't Canceled on #YouTube. Okay, so here they are. Halloween isn't canceled. We're going to look at their video. This is for all of us. This is good.
Look how cute they are.
They look adorable.
They're not wearing masks. They must wear masks.
They're going to die. So cute. Isn't that cute? Okay,
That's
I'm going to
amazing.
stop it now.
It's well done. So well done. So the point
Before
is
I
there are
get dinged
creative
by
ways to...
Isn't it cute?
Here's what a healthy public health messaging, it seems to me, would be. It's like, hey, everybody, you made it through the summer surge by cooperating and distancing and wearing your mask. Great job. Let's make sure we don't undo all the great progress we've made. Let's think of creative ways to keep Halloween safe. Yeah. That's what they should be doing. And look at these folks. Isn't that interesting and fun?
They're adorable.
That is a public health message.
And thank you for the email, whoever sent it.
What is not a public health message is our mayor has a terrorism scale. You know that dial that goes from green to red? That's what he puts up every night and keeps us in orange and tells us, you're going back to red. You're going back to red. That's not public health messaging. That is abuse. That is abuse. That induces powerlessness. That is exactly why I'm depressed, and I'm pretty resilient. And you can imagine what this does to everybody. So, and we're going to have Chad Kroger and JT on Thursday, Susan. Is that right?
Yeah, on Wednesday.
Wednesday, who do the best health messaging I know. They're a couple comedic actors that went out and handed out masks in Huntington Beach. Lisa, did you see that?
No, I didn't see it. I'll have to look it up.
Should we play a little bit of that, Susan?
I'll see if I can find it.
Yeah. They just they handed out masks, and wherever they went, people tried to beat them up for essentially what the individuals were experiencing. Hey, you're telling me how to live my life, which to me was symptomatic of how profoundly tired the population is of the government telling them how to live their lives, right? And these guys were just bringing that to the surface through some very clever health messaging. And by the way, when you see how silly the people, here they are.
Sorry,
You want to see it?
Hold on.
And when you see how silly the people look that were refusing the mask, it makes you want to wear the mask. It's a perfect health message. It's a way to do it. So you want to play a little bit of it?
These are our new friends.
Yeah, here they are. No one's wearing them.
There is some dialogue.
Pokey shot. Oh, God.
So they're great. I mean, that's just one of their many interactions with people, and you keep thinking, oh, people that are pushing masks away are silly. They're I understand their feelings, but their justifications are silly. I'll just wear a mask. That's health messaging, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So
if we just do our part and we quit complaining.
But by showing, because all those years on Loveline, I knew how health messaging worked, and then there's a field of study. I don't know if you're aware of this, but there's a whole field of study that opened up on health messaging, particularly towards adolescents and their reproductive behavior. And guess what they found? Relatable source, someone that looks like them, acts like them. Narrative, a nice story that they can be involved in. Entertainment, a little humor, a little twist, to the story. That's it. Those are the elements. That's it. And I'm here to tell you that humor does a lot to really break down some of the denial and the resistance and all that stuff. So anyway, so here we are in California, and they wanted to cancel Halloween, and they backed away from that. Just they are not canceling Halloween. They are still the county mental health county health department has gone on the record saying trick-or-treating is unsafe. It's an unsafe activity. You're worried, Lisa, you're worried about the health and well-being of 8 to 12-year-olds and their mood states. How much worse can we make it? We don't even know the full impact of all this is going to have.
Yeah, I think, again, this goes back to the fear of the unknown and, spreading information that isn't science-based. My daughter and I were in the grocery store here. We're mandated. So Maricopa County, where I live, mandates that you have to wear a mask. And I kind of live out in the shockingly kind of outskirts of real life. And so it's kind of country up here. And so somebody just attacked us in a store and was like, you're just a lemming and you're doing what you're told. And
it's Arizona, Arizona, everybody.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, you got to be a little careful. The cowboys up here, I'm very calm around it. But I was really shocked at kind of the energy at both of us. And my daughter's, she's like 5'5" now, and we're not little, but like we're sitting there, and I just looked at him. I said, I'm sorry you feel that way. I choose to wear a mask for your well-being. And he just lost it. And I said, we can agree to disagree. And so I'm very calm, and my daughter's like slowly like inching away from me, and I'm standing my ground. And he just said, it's pointless. I'm not going to have this conversation. And I said, well, I'll continue to wear the mask for you. Of course, I'd get the last little, jab in there. Right. But, I think you have to just kind of stand your ground, and you have to, do we know what somebody's going to do around us? We don't. We can control ourselves, and we can control how we respond.
I'm going to stop you,
people.
Lisa. Something's going very wrong with the audio, apparently. They did not hear any of the audios on the videos, and they're saying Lisa's echoing.
I'm trying to fix it, and I'm screwing everything up. Okay, go ahead.
So they didn't hear the videos. Apparently.
I know, but there were subtitles.
Okay, there were? Oh,
Yeah.
good.
Yes.
So for the people listening to this on podcast, we apologize.
Not for the kids lying with the candy, but it was.
But and then
got the visual.
somebody's saying here on the thread, masks it's unconstitutional, it's overreach, and yes, I don't disagree. That's the whole point. The sentiments are not wrong. The fact that you stop wearing a mask as a way of expressing that sentiment is what the problem is. The masks really do work. I'm sorry to tell you, they really do, and we need to all wear them to get through this thing while we wait for a vaccine. It really is important. And yes, I agree with you, particularly in California. And I guess Arizona always has that kind of don't tread on me streak in it. But in California, we have been so beaten up by our government. I think that's why you see the same kind of thing going on here.
Well, and I don't, like my grandmother was born in 1908, lost one of her cousins to the epidemic, the Spanish flu epidemic. And back then they would put like a purple black wreath, I guess, if you had an infected person in your house. And so growing up, I remember hearing about, this flu, the deadly flu or something, but I didn't really put it together until this kind of happened. So I agree. I mean, I think that everybody has, this is America. This is why people live here. This is why, it's a little bit like challenging, because I think that we all have the right to our own opinion and the expression, and you should support those things, but you shouldn't shut down others because their views are different than your own. And I think that that's kind of really that tolerance and that compassion and having grace with other people, and not necessarily having to, argue against them or tell them that they're ridiculous because they want to do things a different way. Like that's the part that I think that would be nice.
And I was just going to want to finish off my own personal frustration with social media with saying that, unfortunately, I sort of feel like we've invented the printing press, and we're going to have to go through our 100-year of religious wars or whatever it is. And I hope it's on a shorter time frame than the 16th century, wherever that was, 15th century, when the Gutenberg Bible came out. And at the same time as I was experiencing inordinate frustration and misery going down the rabbit hole, I had an exchange with Tulsi Gabbard, and that's an extreme. And she's a kind of a hero. I like her a lot. And just because of social media, this little exchange happened. There's nothing else on earth right now that would have made that happen, right?
Right.
So
Connecting people. Right.
So
I mean, I think
things that go on that are truly positive with it, but we just don't know how to or maybe DCA, Digital Citizen Academy can help you, but I don't know how to manage it without dysphoria. That's the problem.
Well, I think if we treated it like a norm, right? So like, I think that a lot of kind of the adults in the room that didn't grow up connected to it. I mean, Gen Z is the first generation that's coming out that was born with a device in hand, right? I mean, they're the first ones that are really growing up that never lived without it. And I think that, again, it does a really huge disservice if we don't teach them the power of it. And I've said this before, and I know that I've gotten lit up online about it, but for me, I think that when you ask me the question of whether or not I think a weapon in the hands of a child or a cell phone in the hands of a child is more dangerous, it takes me a while to answer that question, because I think that there's safeties and there's things with that weaponry, and there's a little bit of fear because we've done education around it and we know that it's something to worry about. When we hand a child a smartphone, there are no such warnings and there are no such dangers and feelings around it. And that to me is a huge disservice.
Yeah, I think we will relate to the smartphone the way we relate to tobacco now. We will one day realize that there was evil companies, knowingly harming us, and that we will protect ourselves from it and use it on a very limited basis and limited ways, that kind of thing.
Yeah, we've talked about that, you and I know, have talked about the why is there not a class action suit yet? And I think it'll come.
I think it will come.
I think.
So let's talk about what you do in your own family really quick. Now, I know your kids are able to play. There's a lot of questions here about sports and things and COVID.
Like the football?
Yeah, your kids are able to, here we go. How about playing football for kids, Drew? CT. Connecticut will still not let high school football happen despite only 1% infection rate in our state. # let them play Connecticut. I'm super sympathetic to this. I think being locked down is a mistake, and sort of learning to live with the virus is the way to go. And so figuring out ways to identify and prevent transmission. What are your kids doing?
Our kids are playing. I have got one child in soccer. I have one child in basketball, which started back, we started in soccer with grids, 10 feet by 10 feet. And then we finally got into play. They wear masks into the field, and now we're back at full play.
And of course, you have a full breakout that's spread into the community, and now grandparents are getting killed, right? You hate old people, right? You hate old people, Lisa.
Nope.
You just ask online. That's if you say that you're doing this, you'll immediately within 3 seconds get you hate old people. You want old people to die. What's the matter with you?
Well, my in-laws live on my property, so I definitely don't. And I think, again, it goes back to safety. Like, my kids went back to school in person this last week. So of course we are doing some isolation, again, just as a preoccupied, like from my in-laws, we're being more careful around them because we want to make sure that they're safe. I think that, in Connecticut and football and kids, I feel like it does us disservice, particularly by the time they're in high school.
Yes.
If we don't treat them and teach them that here's how you do it safely, you either participate or you don't participate, and you let them go back and play.
Yeah.
There are so many kids. I think that the statistic I saw was 15% of kids have given up their physical sport through the pandemic because they just gave up. That's a huge number.
We cannot raise American children like veal. They need to understand risk. They need to understand failure. If we're not exposing them to these things in tolerable doses, we are doing a grave disservice.
Right. And I think, again, the mental health consequences of keeping people locked up in a way and not active and not connected, to me, the depression and anxiety and the associated harm of that, again, if you look at the age groups and all of those things from the science field, I think that it just shows, like, I think that we're gonna have a bigger problem on our hands if we don't get them back active.
We already do, right? I mean, we just don't have the data yet, but it's clear to all of us that it's escalating fast. And that data usually really is 6 months behind. We're going to be able to look back and go, oh, remember we were talking about? Look at the data. It's terrible. And complete disregard on average by county mental health professionals or so-called public health professionals. Let me just a quick public service announcement. All of you, your responsibility is our health, not COVID, our health. COVID is one element. Don't destroy our economic life, our family life, our health. Substance use goes off the chain. Our spirit, our well-being. Don't induce powerlessness. None of that is good for our health. Oh my God. It makes me nuts. Anyway.
Wow, step off of that soapbox.
Yeah, I'll get back. Now you know why I go down rabbit holes and stuff. I start with that position. I start upset. And so it's getting worse. And by the way, I want to say, you guys on the chat, on the Restream, great conversation, particularly on the sort of YouTube side. I really like that you guys answer each other questions, and I see you. I see you out there. I know, I see you. So the other thing I started telling the story of what got me going down the rabbit hole, was the fact that I saw a tweet with that movie, the Netflix film with the young girls in it, the dance team, and then I saw, this is how I ended up talking to Tulsi Gabbard. Tulsi Gabbard expressed her outrage at it, and I just said, thank you for speaking. This is just beyond. And it's interesting to see all the interpretations that you notice. I didn't say anything specific, right? But it became, why don't you watch the film? The point of the film is to take issue with women, people that do this to young girls and families that put girls in these situations. And that wasn't my point. But thank you for filling in and reading my mind for me. That wasn't what was in my mind. What was in my mind as I watched the video in horror was that they had 10-year-old actresses do that. That's what bothered me. I mean, there's other layers to it for sure.
11.
In terms of they were supposed to be
They're
11.
still minors.
I don't think they were 11. I think they were 9 and 10-year-olds. They had 9 and 10-year-old actresses behaving in ways that I just couldn't believe that young girls were engaged in that action. Forget the fact of who it could get involved with and what the implications are and whether it's a good thing or a bad. Just the fact that organization had 9-year-olds behaving like that was it for me. That was it. It's all I needed. And then it was distributed and all that. It makes things that much worse. Is this an incorrect position?
You go on Netflix and it just pops up at the top.
Lisa, am I missing something? I'm sure you have other concerns about this because you've been dealing with this for a long time.
Yeah, I mean, this is 2 decades of work for me. And I mean, we've failed our children globally. I think that we need to remember that. I think that, to me, I think that, there's a lot of outrage towards the platform that's streaming it, versus the messaging, to your point, using actresses to do that. I think that, the argument I would say is like you're probably using the actors, young children that are portraying, suicide or various other very deep issues that we put on screen that we have to look at and see, like, okay, what is the quote unquote acting versus what it is that they're portraying. And I think it's the fundamental piece to me that we're failing to see is that the movie itself is portraying something that is fundamentally wrong. It is fundamentally outrageous. It is hurtful. It is obscene that we have young girls doing this. And it is precisely what you have every day on Instagram, TV, on TikTok, on all of these apps. I mean, I've got an investigation going. I have probably a dozen pieces of film of children under the age of 10 that are actively seeking out individuals to come to their live streams to gift them money. So this is the tip of the iceberg. It's absolutely outrageous. I do think that we can't kill the messenger and how it came to public in so many ways, but to stop for a second and listen and say, all right, what is really truly wrong here?
So, and also you've pointed out to me many times how there are those hackers that take these images and do all, leave them circulating around forever. So these girls now have their, who knows what kind of stuff cut out of there, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think that it goes back to once the Pandora's box is opened, to me, it's failing the children, it's desensitizing the public, it's looking at, how long does it trend for before it kind of dissipates and goes away. There was a documentary called Hot Girls Wanted, which was a documentary walking through kind of an area where young teenage girls were kind of brought into kind of a boost house and kind of running away from their kids that jumped into it years ago. And it didn't get this kind of attention. So, I think that the public is waking up to it for various different reasons that are coming out there. But I think that it's a lot deeper than just being worried about kind of the actresses on the film. For me.
Yeah, the normalization, the desensitization, I've seen that argument a bit up here too. But Hot Girls Wanted was clearly documenting behaviors that were awful. And did they help these kids at all in that documentary?
So not through the documentary. I mean, I think a lot of them are like just commentating. It's a commentary on like what kids are going through in life. How, to me, it's like, again, you look at this age group. You shouldn't have 10, 11-year-old girls. Susan's right. The film depicts 11-year-olds, but you shouldn't have 11-year-old girls having to make these choices and
Right.
bringing themselves into the place of being in that space.
Right.
But think about the age group. The minute you get into that teen, you had 3 at once with one daughter. I've got one daughter who's 13. And it's not an easy time in my household, dealing with that. And so now you've got young kids watching this and there's kind of this attitude that I can go have this other life online. And so it's even a deeper disassociation with that family unit and that safety and that sanctity of like feeling safe as a child into these worlds where there's tons of predators and people online that are willing to kind of open the door and let them through. So that fundamentally is the bigger issue to me.
Yeah. I want to comment on the chat stream here. Anybody but Trump, that's his handle. I see all the articles you're posting about spread of COVID in sports teams, and I'm certain there will be. I'm certain there will be. The point is there's ways to manage it. I was reading an article this morning about small colleges having no trouble controlling the spread of COVID on their campuses. It's the bigger universities that are having the big issues. So, I mean, just being creative and learn to live with this virus, maybe there's ways to manage smaller groups, more testing, whatever it might be, things that do work rather than shut down, which seems to me the most primitive thing you can possibly do. Any thoughts, Lisa?
Yeah, I mean, I think that we have a couple of universities here, and they've like created an entire dorm where if a student tests positive, they're doing like weekly testing of students. If they test positive, they're either isolated if they have an individual room, or they're brought into this dorm that was set up for kind of COVID students, so that, and they're monitored by medical personnel. So there's definitely ways that if you're proactive about it, you can actually manage a COVID situation in a positive way where the university itself doesn't have to shut down.
The Acorn, I see your comment here. I'm going to read it because I want people to know it. I'm specifically not using the name of the film intentionally. I just want to have the conversation about, the images, not the film. But I will tell you what the film shows, and I thought Acorn put it well here. Dramatizes what people of color and immigrants endure as a result of isolation and ghettoization, not being represented culturally and politically, and not being represented in France, I think you're talking about, because it is a French film. And yeah, those are worthy social messages to explore. I'm just saying you didn't need to go all the way. Plus, we have CGI. I know it's expensive, but if they have to show these images, why do they have to force children to engage in the activity? I mean, where do you draw the line? I mean, if we're going to do a film on child sex trafficking, you're going to show all that? Is that the point? Just to shock people? I mean, that's my point. I think they went too far.
Well, it'd be really interesting to see whether or not they had, a psychologist on the team, if they created some dialogue around it, if they worked on it. I don't know. We don't know that. I don't know the information beyond that. But I, again, I think that to your point, you're putting children through behaviors that now are trained, just like you would, as a dancer or anybody else, have that behavior, and you take that on in your life. So it's a bit dangerous. And that emulation that they actually portray in the film, where, they learn it by watching it online, is precisely what those TikTok dances are. So it's going to continue, and it's going to get spread further. And again, it's a Pandora that is opening up, that I'm not sure whether or not the world is really ready to understand how deep it goes.
And Acorn, I see that you're quoting somebody else, but I do know, I think that quote was pretty thorough and pretty good. And then for your kids, how do you manage the access to all this?
So neither of my kids have cell phones or personal devices. I have an 8th grader and I have a 6th grader. We have computers, obviously, because they had to go online for school. And then we have an iPad where they can, message friends or talk to them, that we use and monitor through a family account. So there's nothing that they're doing on there that isn't something that my husband and I, we took one each. We didn't have 3. So we have one man on man defense there. And so we just keep, monitor what the conversations are and what happens there, and it's a big job. And so that's what we do.
Full-time job.
Susan just is so thankful we're through it, and we did it in the period of history in which we had to do so. Wouldn't you say?
I'm just cringing about this whole conversation. It's just,
Yeah.
I mean, my daughter was a figure skater, and I understand the dance part of it and the art, but it was.
Well, you didn't see the video.
I'm glad I didn't. I don't want to, because it'll make me.
It's very upsetting.
Yeah. It was just a bridge too far. I mean, I get the point they're making and everything, and they went too far. And again, not the image. To me, it was asking actresses that are 9 and 10 to do that. It's always like, oof.
Well, they're not. Their parents are consenting, but who knows if they really are consenting?
They can't. I mean, Lisa, go ahead and talk about that for a second.
Yeah. So
your legal.
Yeah, legal consent. Yeah. I mean, I think that this goes back to the Guardian ad litem, and the reason why you go into that field originally is you have to look at the age of consent. If you look at all of the apps, any of the technology industries, like, you have to be 13 in order to have a quote unquote account on YouTube or, Instagram or things like that. I mean, I can go on a whole talk about why I think 13 is still too young, but that's the age that the kind of COPA, Children Internet Protection Act, does for the children. So 13 is really kind of the time when they can kind of make the choices in the online world. But we don't have a consent law until later for actual sexual, contact and things like that.
What are they? Tell me about 13. What is this they're able to consent to?
So like in any time when you have like apps like Instagram or things like that, if you look through the terms of service, which I've broken down for kids for many, many years, the age of 13 is really when you can have your own account, quote unquote, legally through them. There's a lot of reasons why that I don't want to like bore the audience with, but like that is kind of that age that they're given the ability in the online world to do that. As a parent, I will tell you that my daughter got a Google account through the school that was locked down. And as a family, I said, okay, I can monitor that. And then they sent me an email and they said, just want to let you know your daughter's turning 13 next week. She will be released and will be given her own account. And I wrote them, I contacted them. I said, I would prefer to keep this under a family monitoring program. And they said, she's 13. Like, no, basically.
Yeah, that's the
law. I think that, again, like
and
that goes back to lobbying policies, all of those things.
That's a federal law, or is that the same state to state, or?
No, there's federal. I mean, there's a Children's Internet Protection Act that is in the federal laws that goes out and goes and protects the kids. But the consent for sexualized behavior, touching things like that, is obviously the age of 18. And I would argue it's older than the age of 18 for any, woman who wants to say no to any of those behaviors. So, but for a child, they are not allowed to consent, and that's state by state. So there are different laws on that, which is crazy.
And different ages too, which is weird.
Different ages, yeah, for luring, and like every state statute is different.
It has come, I have watched it change over the last 20, 30 years, and they've moved in the same direction. They're getting near the same place, but there still is a lot of variability.
Yeah. I think it goes back to, we have to figure out a way to teach our children how to have responsible understanding. If they're going to sit down and they're going to have the access to the devices, then we need to educate them on what that means. And so it has to be age appropriate. And, kind of my line with any family is, when you're ready for your children to be exposed into the world of pornography, then you can hand them a device. And if you've had that conversation, then that's great. And if you're okay with that, then that's fine.
There's a new law in California that's causing a lot of consternation, and I can't figure it out. I haven't looked into it enough. I've not read the law in its entirety, but there's some new provision in terms of giving judicial discretion as it pertains to adult males having sex with 14-year-old males and below, even, I think. Have you heard about this?
It's a 10-year window.
This 10-year window,
same sex, under the auspice of we are unfairly adjudicating people in the LGBTQ communities.
How does that work? What are they talking about?
So the unfortunate, so that's how they're presenting it. They're saying like we have a higher rate of prosecutions in the LGBTQ community because it's same sex, and so they've presented this law as we're trying to protect that group. And again, like I'm all about like preserving rights idea, when you're involving a child.
Yeah. But
there's a zero-sum game for me, and the 10-year window and allowing minors to give judicial, and this is, someone that has a law degree, and I worked in the Committee of Legal Issues for the APA for 3 years, advising and helping attorneys in the judicial system in understanding psychology. Lawyers don't understand psychology. Okay. Like they're two totally different worlds. So now you're going to give judicial preference to whether or not somebody gets prosecuted or not based on this when there's a huge level of to me, exploitation and danger in that. So again, I was brought into an awareness of this last week as well, and it just made my stomach turn on the number of kids that won't now have the ability to get representation and get help when they need it.
So it's as bad as it sounds. So at first I thought maybe it was just pertaining to whether somebody goes on the felony sex offender list. That's what was sort of emphasized in the story I read, that the judge has discretion on calling them a lifetime sex offender. And I actually, all right, but in terms of not prosecuting even a 16-year-old and 26-year-old, you're not going to do that? So for girls, it's a 3-year window?
I can't hear you.
Uh-oh, we lost it. particular topic. So what do we do?
I can't hear you still.
Can you hear me, Lisa?
I can. It sounds like you're in a tunnel. Yeah.
Turn it to 11, Popsicle. Yeah, that's what I said. Okay. Somebody hacking us for discussing this topic.
Now I can hear you.
Oh, you hear me now?
Yeah, it's a little bit
good?
louder.
Okay, let's see if it came back on the stream.
I didn't touch anything. We're just sitting here minding our own business, and
Testing 1 2 1 2. Anybody
Yep.
hear anything?
it's
It's
back.
back. Okay, we're back. Okay. So you were
It's a ghost.
Yeah, so we're concerned that it's something to do with the topic, because it's interesting to me that I received almost a similar kind of a crushing online for daring to wonder, is this real? What does this all mean? So that's kind of interesting, isn't it? As soon as I brought it up on Twitter, same kind of thing happened to me.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And now hear this.
Well,
So Lisa, go
we
ahead
don't know that.
and
Maybe
again state your experience, who you consulted with, and what you think about this new law as an attorney.
Well, again, like what I heard was that, when I looked at it, giving judicial preference to judges who, are legally trained on law issues and not necessarily issues of the psychological, emotional exploitation, all of those things. I think that the challenge that I see, like when it puts on a bigger burden on a judge to make that determination. And obviously, like, they rely on the attorneys to present that information. But having worked at the APA on the Committee for Legal Issues,
it's the American Psychological Association.
Psychological Association on their, on their kind of highest council, really looking at we're all JD PhDs advising, how do we get better access to science, to the information for the law and the attorneys. To me, you're looking at the situation where it's opening up the door, again, presented in a way where it's like, if we have too many LGBTQ people that are being prosecuted, let's identify that and present that and understand how to do that. To give this 10-year window where somebody who's having sex with somebody within a 10-year window won't be prosecuted if it's the same sex, to me, opens the door legally into the area of having sex with minors, whereby the legal system is going to be kind of conflicted with different laws on what that means.
Yeah.
So the victims won't come forward.
So just so we're clear, a 14-year-old can have sex with a 24-year-old, and a 16-year-old can have sex with a 26-year-old, provided they're both males.
Right.
Right. There's nothing about
that doesn't make sense.
There's nothing about development of males or females that makes early childhood sexual exposure to adults different in terms of its impact on their development. This is so misguided. I can't even believe it.
Well, and again, it goes back to, like, again, it's like, when you look at what people are presenting and why they're presenting it and who these people are they people of, psychological background, medical background, neurobehavioral background, like all of those things, like, are those people the ones that are advising and working on legal policy?
They can't have been. There's could they do you know of anyone in our field anywhere that would have backed this? It's just not. No, I mean, it's beyond.
Right. And so you have politicians and you have people that are presenting it in legislative bodies. And a lot of times, like, having worked in Congress for a period of time, like, you will get bundled laws. If I vote for X, you vote for my Y. And so there's these deals that are made, and it's disheartening. But it really requires us to be vigilant as the people that are paying attention. And, to me, I even though I don't work as a guardian ad litem, I kind of fancy myself one in my off time of trying to pay attention and take on causes to help when I can. So I think this is just one of those those causes where we have to look at it and we have to say, all right, how far has it gone, and how do we alert and address and manage it so that that it causes the least amount of harm as possible.
Yeah. I have no problem with protecting LGBT community, but I would also protect the children. I would put the children as in need of even more protection, perhaps.
Right. Consenting adults should be able to do what they want to do, for sure. It's the minors and the children in the situation that we have to really
Are
look
any
at.
other states contemplating anything like this? This is beyond.
I cannot imagine, having been and grown up as a California native, I feel like it's a very special world out in California that passes things and addresses things that are wholly unic to that ninth district.
This is how we ended up with the childhood sexual abuse pandemics in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. Same kind of stuff.
Wow.
And in the meantime, the fields have moved along, and we now understand, particularly prior to the age of 16, it has massive impact on neurodevelopment, particularly prior to the age of 16. And all the states have moved in the right direction of what's currently available knowledge as it pertains to the development of the human being. And now here California does this bizarre thing that specifically undermines the protection of gay and lesbian, gay male youth. That particular population we're going to single out for exploitation, or for what do we call it? Just for abuse, for sexual violence, as they say in France.
Right. Well, again, it goes back to, like, you have to look at the rationale behind it. You have to look at the why behind it. You have to look at, like, who are the proponents of it? Do they understand what they were voting on? And again, once you have a law that's passed, so what you have to do is you have to look at, how do we repeal? How do we address? How do we create case law that invalidates it? So it takes a process. Like once something goes into law, it's a much different process to get it kind of unwound, so to speak, from that situation.
Doesn't this upset you?
Absolutely. I mean, I think that, I work in the clinical world. It doesn't upset me at all. It hurts. It outrages me. In my clinical practice alone, when you have a public situation, like where somebody comes out publicly and says that they were violated, or something, and particularly sexual crimes, I get a huge mass increase in my adult population that comes forward that are re-traumatized and are feeling all of these triggers that maybe they didn't have years and years ago. So now I've got 40-year-old men and women that are coming forward and saying, I was like sexually abused, and now I realize it, and now I've got a 40-something-year-old that's trying to raise their own children, and they're dealing with their own sexual abuse because of a situation like this. So it's not only upsetting, to me, it kind of comes to me, and like it destabilizes me for a minute to figure out, like, okay, what do I do next? And so I kind of just regroup and then figure out, like, who can I talk to, and how do I mobilize an effort behind this and make a real cause and a change in it.
Are you going to do that?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I spent a lot of money changing my website, creating like a bunch of different places where I can get advocacy on board. Like, I'm really focused on, how do I create a force to be reckoned with? Because I think that when you look at the power in numbers, and you look at the ability to take people who are paying attention and really care about the issue, and you pull them in and you say, here's what you can do, I think that you can make massive changes and really help regroup and create a better, safer society for our kids.
Well, I'm ready to back you, whatever it is. I feel helpless to all this.
Somebody said
California. I mean, that's what they want you to feel.
Someone said California state senators pass unanimously.
Are we missing something?
I don't get. Yeah.
Yeah, are we missing something? That's what I created. I said, am I missing something? Is there something about this law I'm missing, or is it? I mean, what would the argument for it be? Can anyone on chat help us with that? I know I've got to be missing something.
I'm feeling old right now.
No, it can't be that crazy, can it? Or is it, Lisa? Did you read the law?
No, so somebody forwarded to me the outcome of the law, and I looked at the specific, just like kind of with you, like the bullet points. I haven't pulled apart the actual bill proposal itself. If there's an exclusion for the children, I didn't see it in the data that was sent to me. So if there's somebody online that's actually looked at the bill specifically, and again, it goes back to, I don't know whether or not it's this kind of unanimously, we don't want to come out against the LGBTQ community, which I would agree, you don't want to do that. So I don't know whether or not there was some part of that where they passed it based on that. But again, I see a lot of challenges coming up in this situation.
As a result of it.
Yeah, I do. I think, I mean, again, if it's a slippery slope, or if it's kind of setting up a scenario where we're treating different populations differently, particularly because of the developmental piece, that makes me a little bit nervous, because as you and I both know, that sexualization and that ability to be able to go somewhere safe and say, this happened to me.
Yeah.
And to have a law that kind of basically says, well, no, it's okay. You're allowed to have this relationship with somebody as long as it's within 10 years.
What about the sex offenders?
What do you mean, what about sex offenders?
I saw something that said that the bill was protecting sex offenders.
Well, these are
sex with minors.
That's an adult has sex with a child is a sex offender.
Oh, okay.
And they're redefining that,
but
it seems.
Yeah.
So there are Romeo and Juliet laws. So maybe for the audience, if they don't know about that. So there are some laws in place where if you have two children that are within a high school, for instance, so if you have and this goes back to that adult versus child. So if you have a senior who turned 18 in their senior year, but they're still within the high school system, and they're having sexual contact with, a 16 or 17-year-old, all the way down to 15. If you go earlier than 15, then there's different laws in place that protect that really young child. But if they're both in high school at the same time, there is some protection under kind of that student relationship.
Right.
And again, I think that would protect any child relationship, but this goes beyond that from what I can tell. Yeah.
But only males.
Only
yeah,
males.
I mean, and again, if I'm happy to read the whole law and come back on and tell you that we totally missed something if you want me to, but from the
does that mean your teacher can have sex with you too?
If he's 20, if he's 25 and you're 15, according to this law, looking pretty good. Lisa, people are asking about your FBI.
I'm sorry, I had to go there.
Your FBI background. Tell them about that too.
Yeah, so I was an honors intern as a JD PhD graduate student. So I worked in CASCU, which was the child abduction serial killer unit. It was in Quantico. I was there for a summer program, and then I was invited by, at the time was Louis Freeh, the director of the FBI, to stay on as a visiting scholar and to do my PhD dissertation work on infant abduction 0 to 1 years of age. So I was there for about 7 years in total, working with National Center for Missing Exploited Children, the FBI, and what then became kind of the 9/11, the 9/11 situation that occurred. Like that was where our unit was kind of ripped apart, and the terrorism task force was formed, and then which was the critical incident response group, and our unit worked in school violence, and I was there during Columbine. So a lot went down in the time that I was with the Bureau, that probably molded who I am today.
Well, I've abused your time thoroughly, and I appreciate it. I feel one of the reasons I'm not letting you go is you're improving my affect.
Good.
So I'm feeling better. So
Susan invited me to the pool house at some time. So once you get out of lockdown,
you know what? I got a kid living out there now.
Yeah.
Oh God, I can't share space with that.
we'll bring him in or something.
But you had some great questions today. Everybody is.
I'm going to let you go. Again, it's Digital Citizens Academy, dcakids.org, digitalcitizenacademy.org. If you just put in Digital Citizen Academy, all the stuff pops up.
Or drlisastrohman.com for all the linkies.
Twitter, you're at Dr. Lisa Strohman?
Yeah, yes. Dr. Lisa Strohman.
Yeah, if you guys have any questions or.
And I don't do public meltdowns. I try not to.
Do me a favor, just so I can. I don't know if you can do it. Put a little tweet out about your assessment of this law that I can lean on to sort of use as prepare yourself. Gird your loins.
No, I will. I'll kind of digest and pull it apart and look at it legally.
And then tweet, tag me so I can use it as.
Oh boy, here we go.
So we'll see.
Drew's in the mood to tweet.
No, I'm not actually. I'm hating it. I told you, I'm hating
I
it.
know, but
Susan, next
hate it.
time he tells you he's going out to the garage, just check him.
well, I remember.
Make sure he doesn't have his device.
Well,
Yes.
I don't know if you guys remember this, but Pauline used to say it was like a 13-year-old girl on his phone at the dinner table every night. So it's like, but now we're kind of just in it, and I mean, I get it. I worked on podcasts all morning, so I didn't really.
My
wouldn't
thing
have
with the
anything else
phone
to
is,
do.
I'm realizing my thing with the phone is that my whole career I had a pager of one sort or another. I went through all the incarnations of pager. And when somebody drops into me with an electronic device, I consider it an emergency. It's like I have to drop everything and do it. And so I'm so conditioned to that, particularly texting. That's why I hate texting, because I feel like if somebody's texting me, I got to immediately respond.
99% of the
Maybe we
way
need
I
to go
contact
away on
you.
the
So I will no longer text you.
Let's
I'll
just
just
go
call
away
you.
on the
Email me.
weekends.
Email is way better. Way
Why
better.
are we even at home? Let's just go away. Let's just go like on a little trip somewhere every weekend, just so that you can.
Well, we didn't do that this weekend.
I
so
know.
we screwed up.
I know. We were
We
tired.
normally go down to Orange County. So.
We got too excited on your weekend and we were too tired.
Well, Lisa, I'm going to let you go.
Yeah.
As always,
Okay.
thank you. I'm going to answer a few questions here before I wrap this whole
You're the
thing
best,
up.
Lisa. Thank you
Always
for
great
doing
to
this.
see you.
Of course. Of
And,
course. All right.
you
Stay
always
off
have-
a little bit.
You
Regroup.
I'll stay up a lot.
Take
if I
breaks.
can. All right.
All
See you
right.
later.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
God bless you.
Okay, so Susan, you want to put up some of those questions that we had arranged here?
Hold on. I'm getting rid of the Zoom.
I'm just asking. Is that an okay?
You had
play?
some great questions on the restream too. Just so focus on that.
Yeah, and then people were helping each other out, and I appreciate that.
I know
Yes.
this is gonna get censored on YouTube.
JNN's intimidated by Lisa.
My second screen moved over to it, like it's falling off the table.
See, I'm over here, right? Yeah.
It's so weird.
Yeah, Jason, was that uplifting?
Well, yeah. Does anybody have any
The
good
fires,
questions?
Brandon, thank you for asking. The fires are right next door for us. They just evacuated like 2 cities over.
Did they
The Arcadia and Sierra
Again,
Madre.
now?
Yeah, Arcadia and Sierra Madre
today?
Arcadia and Sierra Madre just vacated above a certain level, like back
Right.
where Lori and Steve used to live. I think that's going,
Oh, wow.
and we're way far away in reality, but we are deep in smoke here. Oh, here comes the dog. It's time to eat. This is 4:30 is when he goes. You guys are
running in the
done
door. He's
every
"Yeah."
time.
Is it 4:30?
Yeah.
Wow, it is.
Yeah.
He knows. He knows. He's so funny.
He always tells us that's when we're done.
Well, that's what you were talking about is the fires, right? Oops.
Yeah, we're safe. Thank you, Linda, for asking. Lindsay, you protect your child, my dear. Protect him.
Shoot.
Jason, you're in smoke too. You must be somewhere in the state of California. I'm watching your guys carefully. I did not sneeze today, GSR, probably because I'm already so socked in by the smoke and everything. Is it safe for you to get pregnant? I'm not sure what the question is, Rain.
So do you have any questions from our list that you want?
I'm looking at them right now.
No, the ones that I told you.
Let's start going down the line. I'll just answer them one at a time.
Oh, God. I just
Whatever
lost a good one.
Whatever is easy at hand for you.
Okay,
I'm
hold
going
on.
to go back upstream to see what you guys were talking about that I can answer. Yes, Acor, congrats on stopping tobacco. Monica Riki is shouting you out. I agree with that wholeheartedly. Very difficult to do that.
I wonder if you can read this.
Yes, I can. Okay, I'm in Melbourne, Australia. We're under 5 a.m. to 8 p.m. 5 a.m. to 8 p.m. curfew. Cannot travel more than 5 kilometers from our house. People have been charged for incitement because they've tried to organize protests. At our peak, we were about 900 cases per day in a population of 6 million. It seems like we have grossly overreacted. Here's what I worry about some of these overreactions like that, is that if you look at Israel today, Israel had a similar kind of lockdown, and as soon as you ease up in any fashion, this virus goes. And by the way, and I think even the more that time goes along, there is inevitably going to be interaction with people that come into your home, and then the home is the place of transmission. So the idea of lockdown, the current science suggests, it may be wrong, but it suggests that lockdown is not the way to go. That navigating as best you can with the virus and mitigating. Remember, the whole idea in the first place was mitigation. Prevent the hospital system from being overwhelmed. Nobody ever said we were going to reduce fatality. that we would have liked to have it. I'm certain that was in the back of our mind. We were trying to, or that we were going to mitigate or eliminate the transmission of the disease. I think to try to do that is a mistake. I think it's mitigation and follow and careful and masks but when you try to, we crushed it here in California, and as soon as we tried to open back up, boom, we had an outbreak. Now, to be fair, we also had massive demonstrations, and we had sort of excessive exuberance in the bars, and we had a couple things that really might have worked against us. We'll see now. We semi-locked back down, and now we're sort of opening back up again, and we'll see how it goes here in California. My bet is we're going to do pretty well. There will be some more spread, of course, but I don't think a lot. So I do think that is going too far. And I would just point you to Israel, who's having a problem right now, and their reaction is to go full lockdown again, which I think that might end up being a big mistake. Other question, my mom was on a ventilator with COVID, a study with stem cells they were wanting to do. I was wondering my opinion. I'm sorry, I don't see your name there, but I don't have an opinion. I'm not aware. Bryce, I'm sorry, Bryce, but I don't have any data on stem cells right now.
I think he also wanted to know what else he could do. This was a couple days ago.
Watch the interview we did couple weeks ago with Dr. Patterson and Dr. Yohendra. I think you'll get some more understanding.
Laurent
Lamab is one of the things. There are other things out there. Adaptabil, Abadaptabil. I can never pronounce these things. They're all the monoclonal antibodies, the Decadron, the convalescent plasma. I mean, there's a lot of different things to be done now, and get her on a research protocol. Stem cells are very anti-inflammatory, so it makes some sense to me that might be useful, but I've not read any data on that.
I responded to him and asked him how his mom's doing, but I haven't heard back yet.
I'd like to hear that. I was in the hospital last week with COVID-19. I'm fine now, but since I'm home, I've noticed something with my mind. My ability to comprehend things is increased by leaps and bounds. And this is the opposite of what most people are experiencing. Most long haulers, in fact, are feeling neurologically sort of impaired. They're feeling dulled, tired, sleep disturbances, neuropathies, things like that. And so this is a different syndrome than I've ever heard anyone. And I'm suspicious, and you don't tell me this in your history, but one of the things that happens when people go into shock, even septic shock, COVID shock, any of the conditions where your body's in massive insult and the blood pressure is dropping, should you survive that, it has similar effect to electric shock therapy. In fact, electric shock therapy was preceded by insulin shock therapy, para-influenza shock therapy, other kinds of physiological shocks that psychiatrists used to use to raise mood. And I have definitely seen people come out of serious ICU illnesses, people who were previously had recalcitrant depression, with extraordinarily high mood for quite some time. And I would imagine if your mood is improving, your sense of mental acuity and all that probably goes along with it. So I'm going to guess that's what's going on here. Otherwise, I don't have a good explanation for you. Should we replace the light bulbs in our house to reptile UVB bulbs? I have no idea. I don't even know what that is.
Well, when you have reptiles, you get UV lights for the tanks.
I know that UVC is the antibacterial, but I don't know about UVB.
That's an idea, though.
But people are finding creative ways. This is obviously for your Uber or taxi or your airplane seats. The people are coming up with creative ways to put UVC through their ventilation system, and they hang them in the middle of the rooms. They hang something like that device, which I'll get. Hang something like this in the middle of the room and put it on a timer and have it going off when people are out of the room to sterilize these rooms. Be careful, these things do throw shadows, so there's areas that don't get necessarily sterilized. What else you got there?
I don't know, I'm working on it.
Just keep throwing them up. I'm good with it.
I get
Louise, should I have vaccine? I cannot remember the name you recommended.
I'm doing that. Wait,
I'm not sexually active. Louise, I think you may be thinking about the HPV vaccine, and that's only if you're sexually active. And of course, you should get your flu vaccine. This is going to be a nasty flu season, potentially. All of us screwing with our masks is going to make the flu season worse. This is why Dr. Fauci suggested we not use masks in the first place. We thought this would be something transmitted on hands, like the flu, which it is not. No, go ahead and put it up there.
I wasn't fast enough.
Go ahead. I'll see it. Sorry for I just answered it.
I know. I was working on it.
Oh my gosh.
You're ahead of me.
I did not know that was on the thread here.
Weird. Yeah, I took it off oh, really? It wasn't?
Yeah. It was on this thread right here. So, okay.
I think we're good.
Give me a couple more. Writing experience, campfire, blah, blah, blah.
Okay, I'm gonna-
sorry, Jason.
I love this. It's like Stump the Doctor.
Yeah, it's good. Panic porn, 11 states reportedly seeing a rise. George, I was looking at a couple of states that bugged me. There are a couple of states, but the rises are like in North Dakota, they're going from 100 to 200 or from, 6 deaths a day to 8 deaths a day. So you have to really look at the actual numbers, not just the percentage increases.
Ready?
Go ahead. Portland area homeless camps are experiencing an outbreak of shigellosis, which is a bacterial illness caused by Shigella. COVID-19 has brought them an unprecedented number of volunteers and outreach workers. Is this speeding up the Black Death? So I think that's a little bit of a tongue-in-cheek question. So this is something I've been saying for about a year and a half, which is that we have rat explosions around homeless populations. And in the city of Los Angeles, the rat explosion is county-wide now and is massive. And as a result of the rodent overpopulation, we have typhus. So we're in the middle of a typhus outbreak. In fact, I think many of the Kawasaki syndrome, which is the post-inflammatory syndrome in adolescents from COVID, is not that. It's a misdiagnosed typhus. I've seen the rashes, and they look like typhus for me, not Kawasaki's. But I can understand the confusion. And as a result, I started asking questions about what follows typhus. I started asking infectious disease experts and ecologists, microbiologists, what comes after typhus? Well, what comes after typhus is Yersinia pestis. Yersinia pestis was last had a major outbreak in Los Angeles because of an unrestricted rodent bloom. Yersinia pestis is an organism that causes an illness that you may know as bubonic plague. Now, it's been moving its way across the country. It's been in New Mexico and Wyoming. They just had an outbreak in South Lake Tahoe, and they tried to close down a whole forest, essentially, to try to contain it. That will not work. It will make its way down here through the other animals that we live amongst, and it will get into the rodents, and there will be potentially massive trouble I don't know about San Francisco because I don't really know how the rat situation is there. I'm sure it's not good. But once it gets here in Southern California, this is going to be a catastrophe. And before we're aware of what's happening, many people are going to die. And it is specifically related to inattention by our government, who seems to think they don't need to engage in the basic practices of civilization that throughout human history we have needed. So here we are. 28-year-old, I have a social anxiety disorder. I'm trying to get through it, but I'm struggling. I'm not depressed currently, but I have had depression in the past. So this is a really interesting question to me. So a lot of people have social anxiety, meaning you're timid, you're nervous, you have difficulty functioning in social situations, you're overcome by anxiety. I think we're going to do an anxiety show here soon, and we'll do a lot of anxiety questioning. But the social anxiety is a very common complaint. Now, we thought we found a medication for that, and things like Celexa, some of the SSRI medication, reduces social anxiety symptoms. And indeed, it does help some people, but mostly what it does, see, when you study rodents, when we do our lab animal studies on pharmaceutical agents, they're deducing what the animal is experiencing. So what they found was that animals that were in novel or frightening situations could tolerate that better with some of these medication. Well, that doesn't mean the animal is actually necessarily experiencing less anxiety. It just means the animal is less timid, is more able to do it. So what I would tell you is go talk to your doctor about maybe some medication, at least on a short term, that will make it more easy for you to tolerate being in a social environment, though you still may have lots of anxiety. But if you can tolerate being in that social environment, you can start to build the skills necessary to have some facility where you feel better. So part of having social anxiety is you don't develop the normal capacities to move through a social environment because the anxiety has kept you back from learning those things. If you are less timid, even if you're still anxious, you may be able to step forward and learn those things. And if you're really lucky, it will reduce your anxiety and your mild mood problem as well. Does that make sense, Susan?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Amanda says she'd love an anxiety show. Well, yeah, lots of people saying yes, an anxiety show. I have generalized anxiety disorder. I have with panic in the old days, and so I understand what you all have. Drew, I've heard a recent rise in numbers here in Chicago, for example, from a backlog of old cases released now. If so, should they be counting those as current? Yes, unfortunately, that's what happened here in California, happened in Los Angeles County. This is part of the difficulty of doing real-time analysis in epidemiology. But I'm sorry, yes, it as a convention, it is reported in real time. But you can look back at the graphs and go, well, some of that up and down was a result of the reporting difficulties. Okay, I think, are we good, Susan? Is that about it? No?
It's up to you.
Oh, you got a good one there? Good. Let's go do another one.
This is a good one. I've just
All right,
got to.
let's do it.
Just
got to type it up. I want to look through the questions because I've been answering these questions.
Anybody who ends in LOL, thanks, makes me happy.
The vapists feel special. Good. I'm glad you feel special. I like making people feel special. Here we go. Are we going to be in a worse situation than COVID when the bubonic plague hits? Or are we going to have better tools to handle and mitigate it? Should we panic about this? I laugh out loud. Thanks. No, we should not panic. However, I'm trying to raise a little bit of anxiety about it to get my government to do some rodent control and to clean the streets so the people that are dying in the streets will not die at a higher rate. They're already dying at 4 a day in this county. Do we need to have them dying at 400 a day, which is what will happen if the plague hits? And hundreds will die before the medical system figures out what's going on, because what they will see is an outbreak of pneumonia. And the last thing they'll be thinking about is bubonic plague. And it spreads so quickly and it's so quickly fatal, they'll be waiting for COVID tests. They'll be doing all these other things before we realize we're in the middle of a spread of Yersinia. And again, until the rats are controlled, it's not going to go away. And we have, a government that is ignoring that, and it's on our way here. It's on the way here, everybody. So there you go. But do not panic. There are antibiotics for it. Yes, we can. Once you realize what you've got, you can treat it. Treat it with tetracyclines. Am I over here? Tetracyclines.
Still there.
The problem with tetracyclines are we don't use those routinely in pneumonia. So that's what I'm saying. Before the doctors realize what is going on, people will have died of these pneumonias before they get the right antibiotics.
I'm tired.
All right, let's wrap it up.
You did a great job.
Carrie, on the adverse childhood experiences test, what advice to health-wise for someone who scores 9 out of 10? Carrie, therapy. Your risk of depression, substance abuse, suicide, way up. So please get in with a qualified professional who knows how to treat trauma. Trauma is the thing. All right, everybody, I'm going to wrap this thing up. Can I be back to this camera to do so?
Yeah,
Susan,
see what I can do.
Turn me back.
I
Maybe.
So? Well,
no, we'll have to stay over here. All right, we'll stay over here.
It's still zoomy over there.
Okay, we'll stay over here. Thank you, guys.
Let's promote what's coming up.
We have Tyrus tomorrow.
Oops, sorry about that.
With Kevin Nash. He's a wrestler?
Yeah, he's another big-time wrestler. I can't remember what his name is. I think he's bringing him. I'm hoping. And then on Tuesday, we have Alex Michelson.
Alex Michelson, my partner from Fox 11. He's very excited about that. Maybe we can get a swing by from Adam to make him really happy.
Oh, yeah, that'd be awesome. And then we have, of course,
on Wednesday, we have
Chad Goes Deep.
Is that Wednesday? Yeah. Chad Goes Deep. These guys are great.
Chad Kroger and JT Parr.
Look at their videos. Look at Chad Goes Deep and see those videos. They did.
I'm sorry you guys couldn't hear the sound earlier. That was really weird. But
do you want to try playing it again just to see?
No, because it's embarrassing that I can't figure it out. Okay. It just drives me insane.
And then Thursday, I think we have
Thursday, we don't have anything planned, but I'm doing. I don't have to go to Laguna to get the new refrigerator, so I'm doing Where Your Mom's At.
Oh. On Thursday?
The day before your thing.
Okay, so I'm doing a live Your Mom's House show, 5 o'clock on Friday. Apparently, this is going to be epic. They are very excited about over there at Your Mom's House. So any of you mommies, get over there, Jeans, to 5 o'clock on Friday, Your Mom's House. I think you have to reserve a place, so prepare yourself. I've got some stuff for Tom, too. I did an operation on...
They want me to come on her show beforehand. I don't know why.
You mean tomorrow?
On Thursday.
Okay.
At 4 o'clock, so we're not going to be here. I have to go across town.
Okay. Johnny, hydroxyzine is good for anxiety and insomnia. It wears off a little bit. It's
then you'll
visceral.
Be there, and who knows?
But anyway, Your Mom's House is going to be a great show, and and I've got something for Tom. I did a little operation on Josh.
But it's live, right, Drew?
I did a little operation on Josh Potter.
What's the website?
All right, let me look it up. Your Mom's House. Let's see. Yes, I did meet Your Mom's House. Your Mom's House podcast.com seems to be the website. Kevin Nealon is the current pod that's up there. I don't know how you sign up for the live show. You want to maybe text our friends?
No.
Episodes, meet
Sure.
your minds.
They didn't give you any links or anything?
Well, I'm going to look for it now. YMH
it's a live
How
show.
about that? YMH Live. Here we go. It looks like it goes back to Your Mom's House podcast to...
It must be on, it's probably going to be on YouTube Live.
Oh, here we are.
Or do you have to pay? You have to pay for it.
Yeah, you have to pay to get in there. It's at Your Mom's House live show ticket link.
Oh, God.
Is, let's see if this is it. It's through Reddit. I got it. On location live. It says not available in my area. Uh-oh.
Oh, well.
They need to tell us. Do you want to text them real quick?
No, we'll tell everybody tomorrow.
You guys will figure it out and send us.
I'm sure all the mommies know where to go. Oh, ymhvirtual.com.
ymhvirtual.com. There you go.
Okay, thank you, Tom
Also,
Cigars.
yeah. Also, Christina's link or something. Christina's Twitter has got it. So link is on Christina's Twitter. And her Twitter is at Christina P. Is that correct? Or okay.
I can't spell.
Susan is doing a show with Christina P. Anthony, she's going to be doing Where My Mom's At. And then you have a show on Sunday or something, do you not? Or next week? Or
ymhvirtual.com, I think.
ymhvirtual.com. Put that up. There you go. Thank you for putting that up.
I already did. I can't type. It takes a while.
Don't you have a show coming up too here with Colby or something?
Yeah, on the 23rd, I had to move it because I have to move a refrigerator on Tuesday instead of this Thursday. That's why I slotted myself with Christina on Thursday.
All right,
I
you
won't
guys.
be here.
All
So
right.
maybe on Wednesday the 23rd, after your Ask Dr. Drew, we'll get a little spiritual with I may do something on Wednesday if I can book a psychic.
Tom Cigar, if you think Christina P is underrated, listen to her with me on After Dark. She's obviously not I mean, you will know. No one will be allowed to consider her underrated if you listen to what we're doing there. And thank you, GSR. Somebody is saying they want more Paulina. They love her here, and she would appreciate
I love
that.
Paulina.
She would appreciate that.
So Lisa said, for goodness sakes, don't tell the public audience when you aren't going to be home. There's always somebody here. Trust
Oh yeah,
me.
we got people here. Thank you for that.
son lives here.
Yeah, we're here. I'm here.
I have to.
Somebody's here. The dogs are here.
And the housekeeper and the gardener and the
Rex, you want to take a
dogs and
picture? Rex? Oh, he's like, hell no.
I know he wants to go downstairs. He knows food comes around this time of day. So
Okay. The Vapist wants me to answer Car Guy's question.
okay, let me see.
I don't. Here you are. Got a friend out of a really abusive marriage. What therapy do you recommend? Car Guy. There's no special therapy for that. There are people that do specialize in women in domestic violence situations. So usually you can find somebody who will promote that fact. The key is getting the two away from each other, and you've done that. That's the first, second, third, fourth, and fifth priorities. Good job. You've done it. But in terms of healing that person so they don't make the kinds of crappy choices again or aren't attracted to abusive people because of their traumatic past, that is long-term therapy. And so most therapists are equipped to handle that. But if you go to somebody who has experience with domestic violence and women with the abuse survivors syndrome, which is, again, she should read some books about it. I'm sure she has. I mean, it's all out there. And she should educate herself about the things she found herself caught in.
It's so hard, though. Once you're in, you're in.
Well, she's out now, though. But it's like being in a cult. It's a cult of two. And she's out now, and that's good. And that's the key thing, is getting them out and getting them apart. And usually they start to wake up to what was going on. But then they're left with all kinds of guilt and shame. And then there's trauma, and there's post-acute trauma. And then whatever the original trauma was that set her up to be attracted to somebody like that. So there you go. All right, let's wrap this thing up, and we will see you tomorrow around the same time.
Real talk.
Headlines have become It's sickening. They become poisonous.
Dissecting headlines.
Defying state orders. Sheriff Bianco not enforcing what the governor is saying.
Dialed in with decision makers.
Clarify what you actually meant.
Get the answers you need.
At the beginning of this, we were told, don't wear a mask. Is this really helping?
Expect a different kind of newscast. Fox 11 News Special Report. Weeknights at 7.
The World Health Organization estimates that each year approximately 1 million people take their own life. That's one death every 40 seconds. Experts predicted numbers would peak in 2020, but no one could have imagined the devastation brought on by COVID-19. During the coronavirus pandemic, you may experience anxiety, sadness, and loneliness. Existing mental health conditions, including severe anxiety and major depression, may worsen. If you're feeling hopeless, contemplating self-harm, or you're concerned about someone else, I'm here to tell you there is hope. A Mission for Michael is dedicated to helping clients achieve complete inner and outer transformation. Mission for Michael is the premier resource for intensive mental health treatment in Southern California. With an astonishing 2-to-1 client-to-staff ratio, each client in their facility receives individual care 24 hours a day, overseen by a team of all doctorate or master's level clinicians. With a focus on evidence-based treatment, along with personalized and compassionate care, they offer mental health treatment that can change lives. If you're suffering from mental illness or you're concerned about a loved one, go to amfmtreatment.com. Again, that's a Mission for Michael, amfmtreatment.com, or call 866-581-4401. Again, that is 866-581-4401.